First at 4, prosecutors describe a shocking confession from a Detroit mother, why she's now charged in the homicide of her 4-year-old son. Gun safety in Michigan. Governor Gretchen Whitmer just signed a bill supporters say will save lives. We're going to talk about what the bill does. Florida is a big summer vacation destination. We are gathering reaction right now to a travel advisory that warns certain groups to think twice before making any reservations. Plus, we're tracking a forewarned forecast that looks pretty promising this week. But will any trouble blow into town? We're going to take a look first at 4.
Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News First at 4 starts now.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Karen Drew. First at 4, the mystery of a family's heartbreak is now apparently solved with the arrest of a Detroit mother. Prosecutors have charged Siobhan Caprice Boone in a 2022 homicide of her 4-year-old son. Anthony Upshaw Jr. died in April of last year at the family's home on Detroit's west side after ingesting fentanyl and going into cardiac arrest. Now, at the time, no one could figure out how the drug got into his system, but prosecutors say Boone called 911 last Friday and turned herself in for murder more than a year later. Investigators now say she gave her son the narcotics that caused his cardiac arrest. Boone is being held without bond. A family in Harper Woods is looking for answers this afternoon after a 10-year-old boy is shot in the head. He's in critical condition right now. Police say they were called to the home Saturday afternoon about 3. They say the initial investigation shows the gunshot was self-inflicted. Detectives are still trying to determine if the gunshot was intentional or maybe accidental. They're also trying to figure out where the gun came from. Harper Woods police are reminding gun owners firearms should be kept unloaded and says it has gun locks available free of charge. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Democratic lawmakers and gun safety advocates just celebrated the signing of new legislation. They say it's about common sense gun violence prevention. The new package creates a so-called red flag system. It will allow family members, police officers, or medical professionals to seek court orders to keep guns away from people who might be dangerous to themselves or others. National gun control advocate Gabby Giffords was on hand for the signing and urged more cooperation to keep the progress going.
Now is the time to come together, be responsible. Democrats, Republicans, Independents. We must never stop fighting. Fight, fight, fight.
The new law could face some challenges when it comes to implementation. We'll have more reaction on Local 4 News at 5. Investigators are searching for the cause of this fire that burned the roof of an apartment building over in Farmington Hills. The fire broke out this morning in a complex called The Retreat at Farmington Hills. Sky 4 was over the scene in the area of 12 Mile and Middle Belt. The building was evacuated. Luckily, no injuries have been reported. Let's turn our attention to the first forecast. It looks like the week is off to a pretty pleasant start. Ron Hilliard is in for Kim Adams today. Hey, Ron.
Hey, Karen, we are seeing those temperatures out there pretty much on the milder side across the area, but they are going to be going up and then down, and we have quite a bit of sunshine that is in store for us, but we're not going to see it all because it's filtered by wildfire smoke. We're going to talk more about that wildfire smoke, how it's going to be impacting us, how long it's going to stick around, and also if there's any chances of rain coming up in our forecast. And again, some mild temperatures this week before some cooler air rushes into our area. That's all coming up. Karen?
All right. Thank you, Ron. Well, it has been a wild few days when it comes to negotiations over the U.S. government's debt ceiling. Right now, we're about 90 minutes from another key face-to-face meeting between President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Kimberly Gilt joins us now here with the very latest. And Kim, the president and speaker really face a tricky balancing act here.
They really do. And good afternoon to you, Karen. The Democratic president and Republican House Speaker seem to agree that they don't want the government to default on its bills, but both men have to make just enough concessions to get a deal done without losing the support of lawmakers who might think the compromises go a little too far. The president is scheduled to sit down tonight with Speaker McCarthy in the Oval Office at about 5:30. Democrats have already conceded they'll need to agree to spending cuts to get a deal done. The president says they offered $1 trillion in savings. Last week, both sides seemed optimistic, but then the talks have stopped and restarted while the president was at the G7 summit. Today, Speaker McCarthy is keeping his attention on spending cuts, criticizing Democrats for not being more fiscally responsible.
The underlying issue here is the Democrats, since they took the majority, has been addicted to spending, and that's going to stop. We're going to spend less than we spent last year.
And over the weekend, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen confirmed the government could have trouble paying its bills by June 1st. But don't forget, lawmakers actually need time to get any compromise through the House and Senate. So the deadline is actually even earlier, and the timeline is getting trickier every day that goes by without an agreement. So, Karen, we will have another update from Washington tonight when you join us for Local 4 News at 5.
All right, we appreciate it. Thank you, Kim.
Sure.
Well, the only black Republican in the United States Senate wants to move into the White House. Today, South Carolina's Tim Scott officially launched his bid for the Republican nomination in 2024. He's giving us some idea of what he stands for.
As president, I will motivate, inspire, and require every able-bodied citizen to take responsibility and go to work. I will lead a revolution for excellence in our schools. Less CRT. And more ABCs.
Scott is now heading to campaign in South Carolina, Iowa, and New Hampshire. Scott joins at least 5 candidates who've already jumped into the race, including former President Donald Trump, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, and Michigan businessman Perry Johnson, who did launch his bid back in March. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is one of the other big names expected to join the race, and he is in the national spotlight thanks to the NAACP. The civil rights group has issued an advisory to people of color considering a trip to Florida with some blunt words saying, quote, "Beware, your life is not valued." Paula Tutman found one mother who actually pushed a pause on a trip to Disney.
For the second time this year, national CEO and NAACP president and Detroit native Derek Johnson has issued a travel advisory.
We are advising African Americans and others that if you travel to Florida, beware that your life is not valued, that we have a political landscape that could cause harm.
The advisory stems from political and cultural rhetoric as well as legislation by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, barring education that includes topics concerning race and racism. Twyla Banks has already pushed pause on her children's request to visit Disney and Universal Studios this year.
It's heartbreaking.
And as the owner and CEO of Extraordinary Travel Agency in Roseville is used to advising clients about areas that are dangerous around the world.
As travel agents, we have to stay on top of everything travel related domestically and internationally.
And she is now grappling with immediate concerns her clients, who happen to be minorities, have about travel in her own nation.
I did reach out to one of my clients who was planning to go to Miami in August, and yeah, she's not too thrilled about having to change her birthday plans.
I don't necessarily feel safe in Florida.
Zaire Kwabena, the executive director of LGBT Detroit, a nonprofit advocacy organization that supports gay rights, says this hits him twice, not only as a black man, but a gay black man, given that DeSantis has also enacted legislation banning any discussion of homosexuality in certain public education in what's being called Don't Say Gay laws.
The state has just said a part of my history is invalid. The other great thing that I'm concerned about is this ability to carry without a permit. I can't even think of where I could walk in the entire state where I'd be safe.
Reverend Wendell Anthony, president of the Detroit branch of the NAACP, just returned from the national meeting in which it was unanimous to vote for the advisory.
The rhetoric makes it dangerous because the rhetoric leads to division. The rhetoric leads to hatred. The rhetoric leads to violence. The rhetoric leads to scapegoating and making people vulnerable.
Phil Diamond is the comptroller for Orange County, Florida. His office monitors tourism revenue based on tourist taxes.
Whether it's many or whether it's few, it's too many. And I think it's something that will have some adverse effect on tourism.
Yeah, of course, there are some plans that cannot be changed. They're engraved in stone. Think about Memorial Day festivals, for instance. Now, for his part, DeSantis has said publicly that he's not worried. He calls this a political stunt. Now, I do want you to know I've also made numerous calls, as well as our partner stations in Florida, numerous calls to various chambers of commerce to get their reaction, whether or not they feel like this will make a difference, understanding that, you know, there are people who won't change their plans regardless of this advisory. We could not get anyone to go on camera or on the record. It's important to point out, however, these entities get funding from the governor's office. Karen.
All right. Thank you, Paula Tutman, reporting for us this afternoon.